Glad that you're here. Let me just turn on the recording here. Welcome. Stephen Feder here from United Learning, and delighted to be with you. I am arguing with a cold tonight. I gather Eric is too, although we haven't been in the same room with each other, so they're probably different colds. But we're glad to have you with us. Welcome. Stephen Feder here from United Learning, and delighted to be with you. A minute. I am. We don't need to hear me twice. That's my recording playing from YouTube. So now we know YouTube is working. Anyway, we're glad you're here. I do apologize if you didn't get a link, and I will look into it and make sure that we get the link sent out on the regular time. I just have asked it to resend the thing, so it should come out to your email in 2 or 3 minutes, and maybe we'll pick up a few stragglers at that point. Eric, I know you're under the weather. I think it's above and beyond to pull together the slides and walk us through this again. And I gave permission to Eric to stop early if he had to, but I know he's got things that he needs to share. So we're glad you're here, and thanks for being a part of this, and looking forward to what you have to say. Over to you.
Great. Well, folks, good evening. Tonight we've got a fair number of moving parts and very, very current sort of government and CRA and compliance type information. So I'd originally planned to spend more time than I'm going to tonight on the insurance file. So please bear with us. As usual, we start by remembering that we are called to be the church in this work that we do on behalf of all our local congregations, our regional councils, and the denomination, frankly, around the world. As is our practice, we begin this meeting by acknowledging that we are on the meeting on the land that has been inhabited by Indigenous people from the beginning, and that long before today, Indigenous peoples have been the stewards of this place. We're grateful for the opportunity to meet here virtually from all parts of the country. And we thank all the generations of people who've taken care of this land. We recognize and deeply appreciate their contribution to the land. We also recognize the contributions that First Nation, Métis, Inuit, and other Indigenous peoples have made in shaping and strengthening our own community where we are, our province and territory, and our country. And as settlers, this recognition of the contributions and historic importance of Indigenous people can't be just a statement at the beginning of a meeting, but must be clearly and overtly connected to our collective conscience to make the promise of truth and reconciliation real in our communities. And with that, tonight we're going to spend a fair bit of time just alerting you to stuff that, and those of you who joined Clyde and Stephen and I and Angelica through the whole COVID cycle of the last few years might remember when information was changing every week. It's not quite as bad as that, but I'm going to be alerting you to about 4 or 5 things where there are still moving parts. So don't get alarmed. But, this is more of an advance warning, and in some cases, we'll know more tomorrow. And in some cases, we're hoping to hear favorable news in the next few weeks. So we're planning to just very quickly recap for anyone who wasn't with us last time, just the budget numbers and where to find them for all of you working on your local budgets. And then a whole bunch of CRA stuff, some insurance, are always nagging you to make sure you're online, and then of course your questions. So a quick recap from the budget work. We went through this in detail last time, so if you wanted to check the slides or the recording, here's just a quick summary of the increases to the minimum salary grid, bearing in mind there's any cost of living group changes and what the amounts are that impact generally your compensation budgeting. I find this slide is something I use to explain to non-financial people locally that, hey, there's a lot of costs that aren't salary. There's employer benefit costs, there's government costs, and the employee themselves also have the deductions and tax coming from their paycheck. So I offer this as a useful little summary. As we said last time, the biggest number in any budget, as far as I'm concerned, is trying to have a reasonable estimate of revenue, because that's the one you control the least. Expenses, there are options and choices you have. So again, all of us, I think, are adjusting. Donations, speaking nationally now, donations held up reasonably well across COVID. And I've just seen the annual statistics for 2022. Our local UCWs bounced up, almost doubled from the year before when they were, more or less completely shut down. But rental and other income streams are still not quite to pre-COVID levels, and hopefully we'll be bouncing back in time. But the assessment amounts that you need are online, and I talk about the insurance premium. I'll give you some specifics during this call, but basically we've just yesterday gotten confirmation on what the rate adjustments will be, and frankly, it's very good news as far as I'm concerned. Or at least it's better than I had hoped. Okay, so here's a few things just to flag. Those of you in Ontario, this is something that's happened in Ontario over the past couple of months. There's an anti-hate government grant program that quite a number of Ontario congregations have applied for. And for the first time in my experience, a department, this could be an outlier, it may not happen more, but this particular department of the provincial government was insisting on proof of insurance. And actually having the citizenship and culture, I think it was, the department added on to the insurance certificate. Now, this created a whole bunch of extra work and demands on our insurance program, but I just mention it in case we see more of this. You'll recall that Clyde talked last time about some trends that we think we're going to see over time. The idea that payroll reporting might be literally every week or every month, or that donations might be filed the same way that when we make RRSP contributions, the CRA already knows about them because they heard from the various finance companies. So just to say, this could be a trend. And proof of ownership for churches is tricky. We're not incorporated. They ask for a copy of the deed. If you have a copy of your deed, great, but most of you don't. So what we've gotten, accepted is a current, if you have a tax statement, even if you're exempt from tax, typically your municipality will still issue a tax statement. And ideally, and we've talked about this before, it will show the trustees of XYZ United Church. That is the best you can do, because then you don't have to keep updating if you have a change of trustees, and it's very clear who the ownership is. Okay, another thing, this is countrywide. There is another one of the federal accessibility grant windows open, just announced last week. Application deadline's December. This is for shovel-ready type projects. Treasurers and congregations typically will have done the work in advance to be able to qualify for this. You can't suddenly start rushing around to make up a project. Have a look at this one. It sounds very targeted, and applicability is, I think, a typo, but nonetheless, it seems to suggest that it's limited to, it might be social service agencies that provide specific programming for folks with disabilities. Quite a number of the other ones have been more generic, seniors programming, accessibility, but have a look to see if it applies to you. If you're one of those treasurers or congregations that is active with seeking grants. This one's federal. Okay, a whole bunch of moving parts now in the compliance space. We reported last time on the dental care benefit, and I'm going to give you that information tonight. The underused housing tax has raised a few questions in the last few days. The deadline is Tuesday. There's nothing you could or should do at this stage, but I wanted to just alert you to some information and what we'll be doing there. We talked last time about the prospect of potentially needing to do T3 reporting on a fund-by-fund basis for some of our restricted funds and bequests and endowments and so on that we might have. This is a CRA requirement for 2023. And again, a lot of moving parts tonight. I'm not, we aren't quite definitive. Something Clyde said last time: as these changes come on stream, it becomes even more and more important to have all employees, that's defined as we've defined it before, as the CRA defines it, basically someone that is going to have EI at least taken off their pay and probably some CPP and tax, depending on the magnitude. Get everybody on E, because you're going to have to have more and more technical requirements. Okay, so the T3, or hang on, I'm sorry, this is dental. The dental benefit change is new reporting on the T4 slip, and this is the whole reason to be on ADP. They're the ones that need to figure out, what it is, what needs to go there. However, we may need to populate some fields. So there are new boxes being added to the T4 and that we know about, and we need to populate those boxes. So Angelica has a screen print here, and this is again going into team pay, the employees tab, and how you click through and so on. I'm not going to talk you through each line here, other than to say the instruction is here and the screen layout is there as well. And you're looking to add a bit of additional employee data. To simplify, there's only two codes for us in Churchland. It's code 1 is no dental insurance or coverage of any kind because they aren't participating in the benefit plan. The other code is 3 because they are participating in the dental plan. So again, this is something that I want to flag two things. If you see the underlined section here, it says that any tax form without this populated will cause the entire company, in other words, your payroll run, to fail. Now, that's the word as of today. There's negotiations in a meeting tomorrow because the CRA is signaling that they may not enforce this for the first year because so many payroll people, and I mean, way bigger than us, are having challenges with this. So right now, this is the instruction, and there'll be more precise, very tight instruction coming, but there's also a chance that there might be a year of grace as well. So Angelica and her team will very much be available to help you with this. Okay, underutilized housing. Now, charities have an exemption. So we've been, I don't know if you've bumped into this in other parts of your life, but it's fairly common where people have second properties, cottages or camps, and or unusual ownership structures, but possibly with a trust of some kind. So charities are exempt from this. We've assumed all along that we would not need to do anything. However, we have seen some discussion that every trustee of a trust might need to file one of these for each property. And this relates to manses in particular. We happen to think that's ridiculous. It is our understanding that even though the United Church has an unusual structure with our trustees holding title to real property, the property is owned by the charity. So that's the view we're taking, and we will be seeking an opinion to bolster that. So to the extent that there's an October 31st deadline for filing, there's no way we would meet that in any case for those of you who have manses. So if you're asked about it, just to say that we understand ourselves to qualify under the charity exemption, and I'll be looking to have a CRA ruling on file to give people extra comfort. Okay, the T3s. Now, this one is a real thing. This is in the Income Tax Act as was passed, whenever it was passed a year or so ago. This applies to 2023, and if it comes to pass in the first 90 days of next year, all of us would have to be figuring out how to complete T3s for our various endowment funds and restricted funds, or if you have a student bursary. I'm not sure if a Manse fund would qualify, but this is a big deal for the church sector, but it's an even bigger deal for the broader charity sector. And Imagine Canada and all the foundations and everybody's been appealing this. And we have received positive signals that there will be a late breaking change on this, but every now and then we get a negative signal too. So those of you who were with us through COVID will remember that stuff changed week to week. We will be coming out with some detailed instructions just in case. And of course, this only applies if you have restricted funds in excess of $50,000 per fund that qualify, that might be caught by this legislation. So tonight, folks, I'm talking about a whole bunch of what ifs, and I hope you can bear with me on that. There isn't anything you need to rush away to do on these anyway. So if we were to do it, we would have to go back for each of our funds and collect additional information on who it was, I guess the beneficial owner, so the original donor. So name, address, date of birth, tax residence, tax information number. At least in my church, I don't even know where to begin on a couple of the old funds that have been around for decades. So we continue to be optimistic about getting a favorable ruling in the next little while. Okay.
Eric, before you jump in, there's a bunch of questions, and they're sort of technical and niggly rather than broad strokes. So I wonder if I could stop you and just kind of throw them at you.
Sure, go ahead, because we are changing gears here. So this will be.
It kind of looked like you were. A lot of anxiety about the dental care benefit, and looking for some clearer description around what exactly we need to do right now. Which box are we talking about? And one box, choosing option 1 or option 3, and somebody's got a person on parental leave, and so what's the date that's effective, and some of those kinds of questions. This sounds to me like the feds are trying to create this new dental benefit in conjunction with the NDP, and so they have to figure out who's covered by a plan and they don't have to pay for.
Well, first of all, that part's right, and specifically, the whole idea is, there's an income test as well, so that's why they need the information.
Okay, so
in
all of
terms
this goes on the T4 slip.
Yeah, it goes on the T4 slip in simplistic terms, and again, give us a few more days to go fully firm on this. There's a meeting literally tomorrow that Angelica tells me, but she and her team will help make this happen. But basically, it's for anyone that's on payroll. There's the two codes. It's in the additional information section. So you just need to drill down. I didn't go through the screen, but we will make sure that people have additional information. And the first thing we're testing for is to make sure that the entire, we're trying to get relief from the idea that the whole the whole filing would fail if one form was blank.
Sure.
That's what we're looking for.
Here's a suggestion for you, and it comes from the representative of the communications department on this team. And that is, once you're sure what you need, let's put together a pamphlet and send it out to all our treasurers. And in the meantime, we can just leave them with the warning that something is coming, but you're not quite sure what yet.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's actually that sounds better than maybe what I'm sounding, but that's what I'm trying to do here.
Okay. I think, the questions that have come in are technical and specific, but I think they all have the same answer, which is you don't have 100% certainty yet what we're supposed to do. You've got a sense that this is coming, and you're appealing parts of it. And once you're sure, you'll tell us a little more clearly what we have to do.
Yeah, on the dental benefit, we do have a procedure there, and Angelica's team's available, but we'll get we'll make sure that people have a very specific how-to and when to.
And just to simplify codes, hi everybody. Just to, so you're not alarmed about the codes, which is 1 to 5. Our plan will be defined only by 2 codes. Number 1, which is if employees work under 14 hours, they're not eligible for any benefits, so they would fall under code 1. Everyone else would fall under code 3, which is you're eligible for benefits. So the eligibility piece in our plan. So not to worry about other codes, we will fall under either 1 or 3. And so just please give us some time in order for us to meet with ADP tomorrow. They have more information as they continue to work with the CRA.
Nice to know that you guys are on top of this, and we'll look forward to getting real clarity around what we need to do once you've figured that out. So thank you.
And Angelica, just to clarify, the individual ADP administrator will need to add this information.
That's what we're hoping to do.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Questions about that underutilized housing trust and bear trusts and other trusts?
What's in my ears?
Can you define all of those different trusts that you were talking about, Eric? Because there's you mentioned really quickly along the way.
Yeah, very, very specifically, if there's a manse, we bumped into a technical argument that that perhaps we should file one of these underutilized housing forms. And the due date
is empty, you're presuming, is that
no, even if it isn't, actually, it's a function of who owns it.
So okay.
Yeah, and as I said, charities owning a manse, which is most of our virtually all of our situations, we view as exempt. But because there's a lot of in the accounting space anyway, there's a fair bit of fuss over this. I thought I'd mention it, that we are going to get a ruling so that any treasurer out there who's concerned, first of all, don't be, and we'll be pursuing this ruling just so if it were to ever come up.
Right. Okay. And then you were talking about other trusts and having to file a T3 form in ways that we haven't done before.
That's right. We currently don't need to file any T forms for our investment holdings. In fact, if anything, we receive T3 forms from other companies. there is a new reporting requirement, no tax implication. We won't ever be, or I should never say ever, but there's no amount to be paid or anything. But there is a technical argument that perhaps we should file to say we are a trust owning property.
Okay.
Whereas,
So my congregation has a manse trust fund. They sold the manse. The fund is restricted. That's the kind of fund that we would have to report on. Is that what you're saying?
potentially, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And
when,
again,
when will we know, and how will you inform us when you have some clarity on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll certainly do it during these webinars, but as a practical matter, some of these items are big enough that we have to make sure we get the word out to every treasurer. So there would be a treasurer broadcast on this. We'd have it on region websites,
Okay.
The whole 9 yards.
So basically, you're giving us a heads up tonight of something that might happen, but you're not sure yet.
That's it.
Thank you. That helps a lot. I hope that it helped bring some clarity to the folks online too. It certainly helps me feel a little better, and nice to know what's coming, and also to have a sense that I don't have to suddenly magically change all my thinking tomorrow morning. So appreciate that, Eric. Go ahead. I'll save the rest of the questions, which were, I mean, there's a couple of other questions here, but I'll save them for the.
Okay, yeah, we're just coming up. So
we're waiting for.
Okay, so again, just to say that we've launched some of the programs that we talked about, we've been talking about for years, frankly. So again, if your congregation took advantage of the federal loan program for either $40,000 or $60,000 loans, that program winds up at the end of this year. And again, there's moving parts. They've extended it a couple of times during COVID. They extended it to December 31st earlier this year. They've now recently extended it to January 18th, 2024. And the premiers of all the premiers and the territory leaders wrote a letter to the federal government asking for another year of extension. So again, there's some moving parts here, but the national church has launched the program that we promised we would, that if there's any congregation that's unable to pay off its loan and therefore endangering its grant eligibility, we can arrange to refinance. And with the CEBA loans, we don't know who all got one. So we're going to be getting this message out. It's been issued to all the region executive ministers. It should be on regional council websites. We're announcing it here, and most people, frankly, who have a loan and know this already. But just to say, the program is active. If folks need extra time, then you should be requesting a loan of either $30,000 or $40,000 to pay off that federal government-related debt, and you can get the form either from your regional council or by emailing Maria Pimpinella, and the email is here. But basically, we're set up to go. All you have to do is say you need to do it. You don't need a regional approval. You just need a local decision that that's what you want to do. Okay, so that's for the federal loan program. And I'm not going to get caught up in all these moving dates. We've said that we're set up to get you the money in November or December, so that you can make sure that there's no risk of losing that grant opportunity. In the case of the church loan, Maria has also in this situation, we know who you are. So I think there's 30 or 40 out there still that haven't paid off their loan. Maria has written every one of them individually. And again, you don't need a region approval. You just need to complete the form. And in this case, you need you need to pay us in order to qualify for the $500 grant. And I've had this with in recent presentations. You basically need to it was a $10,000 loan. You need to send us $9,500 before the end of the year, and don't cut it too tight. So, are there more questions? The message there was this thing that I've been talking about for the last few months is live, and we've streamlined it even more to take approvals and stuff out of it.
Sure, great, thank you. And I had one question about that particular issue, which you answered before you got to the end, so I don't have to worry about that one. So let me back up and pick up a couple of questions that came in earlier. One of them, sort of a basic question about ADP, and this may be an Angelica question. Mary Alice says, with ADP, when I'm doing monthly payroll, is there a submit by date? Does it have to be done on the day, or can it be done early and then sort of set a date to schedule it?
You can set a date to schedule, but be mindful to always check to see if it has been processed. Okay.
Thank you. Kelly says, I added all employees. Don't go away, Angelica.
I'm here.
This is another one for you. I added all employees to ADP partway through the year for one of my pastoral charges. So what is required to send to ADP to get cumulative totals onto the T4?
What is required? I'm sorry, I'm lost on that question. I'm sorry.
I presume what they're saying is that for part of the year, they paid them in-house, and then the second half of the year, they put them onto ADP. Now they want ADP to send a T4 at the end of the year that will have a year-to-date or full year numbers. So what does ADP need to receive from the treasurer who paid them out of the church pocket the first half of the year?
So can you ask, can she contact my payroll staff and they be able to support them through that process?
Perfect. Thank you. I wondered if that was the answer, and great. Thank you. Question right at the beginning, even as we were gathering. Dallin says, good afternoon. Forgive my lack of knowledge. I'm new to both treasurer and M&P. I have a question. We know we can make an exception to carry over a portion of the Con Ed to the next year for a minister with a specific goal and prior arrangements. Can we also carry over a week of study leave? And not saying must we, I think saying, would it be okay if we did? That is the way I read this. It's a question of, is this completely out of bounds, or is this something we can negotiate on?
Yeah, well, I'm going to take a crack at that one and suggest, to be extra sure, check with your regional council, because there are some differences in policy between regions, but certainly from my perspective, if it's something that's mutual, the key is to have mutual agreement, and you always want to be careful about entrenching carryover type things. So a lot of folks might take a use it or lose it approach, but if you're trying to recognize particular learning objectives or something, I would make the case myself locally for an exception, as long as it wasn't showing up every single year.
Thank you. Those are the questions I got for you now, Eric. The others we really dealt with when I stopped you halfway through. So thank you.
Well, in that case, we'll keep moving. So some news on the insurance program. And this has been both something that I hope will be viewed as one of the most significant ways that the national church has stepped in to try to help contain costs, and actually did contain costs. Time will tell. We won't know in the first year or the first, but 5 or 10 years from now, I'd like to be sitting in retirement saying, hey, I was part of setting that up, if it works. And if it wasn't, then I'll say, hey, I was the guy that blew it. But so far, so good. The loss results in year 1 have been very good. The reinsurers have signed on. And despite the fact that insurance rates are still going up dramatically, and that what's called a hard market, we have an average increase agreed of 7.7%. I think you'll find that that's going to be less than is happening in the outside world. And there are some folks, it's not just across the board. It does matter what kinds of coverage you have. There are some that are increases that are as high as 12%. Typically, frankly, it's actually with smaller places that might have an umbrella coverage. The umbrella liability is the one thing that where the rates went up more than in other places. But lots of people will be looking at 2 and 3% increases. But frankly, I signaled even a month ago the possibility of low double digits. So I'm pretty pleased with this. And a lot of work went into getting it there. More importantly, we're starting, and we're not there yet, but we're starting to stabilize the service level and getting things out. So the renewal is set to come out by month end. Month end is Tuesday. So there may be some people over there working on the weekend. I don't care as long as they get it to you by Tuesday. So whoever is the contact for your insurance renewal, if you participate in the program, watch for that early next week. Again, an increase sounds like a lot, but in the insurance world, I'm seeing double-digit increases from competitors and so on. So not only you're basically looking at paying more than you were less than you were a couple of years ago, which in insurance land is exactly what we were trying to achieve. We still need to pray for good claims experience. We still need to try to do everything possible from a risk management perspective, because this whole thing is predicated on having reasonable claims experience. Again, just to recap, for the last several weeks, we haven't wanted to quote new business because we wanted to know what the new premium was. So as soon as we get these out, next week, those of you who might be in the queue for a new business quote should be hearing from John Chippendale. And again, for any new folks, you do have to apply for this program. It still runs like a regular insurance policy in every respect. But the whole idea was that the United Church put $3 million of capital into a structure where basically there isn't a profit motive, there's lower commission, and hopefully streamlined processing. And with that, we hope to deliver lower premiums. Because this is a repeat slide, but again, to the extent that appraisals are needed, I list the companies that offer them, and we hope to have more news in January or February at the latest about streamlined and hopefully discounted appraisal arrangements where we need that, where one is required. And again, claims adjudication, it doesn't matter if you're with the biggest insurance company or you're with the United Church program, the same independent claims firms are used. Again, most claims are actually much smaller than a full loss or the full replacement value. So that kicks in. I want to stress again, I really had tried not to oversell this thing. The service in this first year has been embarrassing to me. I don't deliver it. I try to help and fill gaps and stuff, but we did some things out of good intentions that just did not work. For example, we put on the website that, hey, write Eric and Maria and write Hub, and then watch them reply all to each other for the next 2 months and not answer your question. So we've done a number of things to streamline that. And one of them is to give priority and set up separate mailboxes. And this is on the website now for new business, for anything that's time sensitive, and for all these proofs of insurance and so on and certificates. Again, we've set up separate queues with people accountable and with people monitoring those email boxes. And frankly, we've had to swap, we've had to make some changes on the staff team over on the insurance company side, the broker side, to improve things. So that's been beefed up, and we expect it to be much better in year 2, starting with getting your stuff a month in advance as opposed to after the fact. So the next topic is assessment, but I'll just stop there. And are there any questions about insurance there, Steve?
No, oddly enough, there's one or two, Eric.
Okay.
Why are we surprised, right? So let me pull this up here. Joan says, still waiting for a callback from an email and voice message in October regarding vandalism coverage. How long is normal?
Well, again, normal service standards is one of the things I'm writing into contracts now.
Okay.
It should, you should expect some form of response within a couple of days. You haven't been getting that, but if there is vandalism, and typically, that is, depends on what it was, but I mean, generally that's covered if that's your question. And you could start with filing a claim depending on how expensive you think the repair or the corrective action is.
Great. Thank you. A couple of questions about refunds. You had promised insurance premium refunds.
Oh, gee, I know. And let me just jump right in and say the refunds have been approved. If you wanted to, I can tell people what each refund is. It's going to take a little bit longer still because the refunds have to come from one insurance company, go to the other and back, because the refunds relate to your prior coverage. So again, this is something that I made up as an incentive, and it was supposed to be attractive and stuff, but it will probably be, they're approved at my end, but by the time it winds through, it could be another week or two.
Okay. People are just grateful, I think, that it hasn't been forgotten.
Not forgotten. That was a part of the original deal. What did slow things down, though, was the fact that we didn't always know who to deal with locally. So the renewal process of getting people signed up to even know who to deal with ended up taking a lot longer than we thought.
Okay. A couple of questions about how to get a new quote, not insured right now. How far in advance of the renewal date must we apply to get a quote? Currently, their renewal is in June.
Yeah.
Somebody else just saying how much advance time is needed for a new policy.
Well, insurance companies will typically say that you should start your process 2 to 3 months. I say at least 45 days in advance, but you might even want to start 2 months, only because the application and even gathering the information could take some time at your end. It's actually quite painful.
So sooner rather than later.
Yeah. So, again, if you were to submit your application within 45 to 60 days in advance, that would assure that you get information that you can compare to your current coverage before you're forced to
where
renew.
would they find the application form?
The application form is on the website.
Which website?
The United Church UCC Protect. The web page on the United Church website. So
Okay.
if you search for UCC Protect or anything like that, you'll find it there with some instructions. And the other thing you could do is right here, new business. If you have any questions in advance or something, you could submit them to that email.
Let me see if I can find it. If I can, I'll put it up on the thing right here.
Yeah. Yeah, I apologize. I've carried that website in about 30 webinars, and I just.
Of course you have, Eric, but every time we hear something new, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's coming up. I'll get it for you in a second.
Yeah, we can drop it in the chat. I have it
so
here too.
These email addresses that you've created are helpful, and people are asking about a couple of other things. What if they've got an error in their certificate of insurance? Which one of those boxes should they send it to?
Well, if it's an error in a certificate of insurance, that would be the proof of insurance there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Robert, I think this is the same. Our trustees are preparing a letter with a number of issues with our new insurance. That's probably the same thing. So you're saying general inbox?
Again, if it's clarified, there's a more detailed description on the webpage on all the little pieces to include in the. So I'm going to say check the webpage first, UCC Protect, and if there's anything that needs clarification, I'm happy to help.
Okay. There, I think that's the web page that you're looking for.
And you've put it in the chat, I take it.
I just put it in the chat, yes.
Okay.
Heather sent to me, we received a renewal notice from Hub International, but we don't have insurance with them. Is this for another St. Andrews United Church through UCC Protect then?
Well, that would have to be my guess. St. Andrews at one time was the most common United Church name. I'm not sure if it's still true, but at one time we had over 100. So I'd really appreciate it, Heather, if you sent that one back to me. If you could email it to me, my email is in a slide at the end of this presentation. I'd really appreciate that.
I'm not sure that the Presbyterians believed in any other saints.
There were over, it was a trivia question at one of the anniversaries. I think at one time there were like 100, well, not some year, just some few years ago, there were like 149.
There we go. So the age of our church for insurance purposes, we had a sanctuary built in the 60s and put an addition on in 1995. What do we say?
You say all of that.
That makes sense. And just for out of interest, who are our reinsurers? Who reinsures this for us?
Okay, the current reinsurers, they're all the biggest names in Canada. Intact, which is the biggest insurer in Canada, is the lead reinsurer. And frankly, they still have some say because there's delegated underwriting authority. So they have the biggest share. Wawanesa is another reinsurer, and Northbridge. And so currently it is split three ways, and that's the way reinsurance generally works. And we're actually looking to add a fourth company this year, which I will be announcing as good news, but I'm not allowed to say anything quite yet.
Excellent, thank you. I think that's all I've got at this point, Eric. So on to the next topic.
Okay, well, I think we're so these are a few recap slides in case there's anyone new. We've gone through a change of structure for the church and how assessment is worked, and we moved to a standard system that's intended to be transparent and fair and also moved with revenue. So all of that has happened, and 2023 is the first year after a 5-year transition period where that's the case for pastoral charges across the country. I also wanted to flag, because we're getting into that season where people make stock gifts. If there's anyone new out there, this is one of the best deals I know of for facilitating a stock gift. My own church, I set up a direct brokerage account and I receive gifts there, but that's increasingly a pain in the butt. And for for $20 or $30 or $50, depending on the size of the gift, this compares very favorably. The United Church Foundation does literally hundreds and hundreds of these for people across the country. And they process the stock gift, but they send the money wherever you want it to go. It isn't that necessarily for the national church at all, although we obviously would like it if it was. And this is the nag part. Okay, if there's a treasurer on this call who hasn't arranged for their church to have a My Business account for their charity, they should be taking action. We have a help desk to help you get there, but it's just the way the world operates now. And it really is way faster once you get, it's a little daunting perhaps at the beginning. The CRA has made this really, really simple. And in addition to that, we have Rose Camborne staffs a bit of a help desk for people as well. So that's my nag on that topic. Similarly, if you're a treasurer, a new treasurer, make sure you're on Church Hub, because that's where a bunch of key information resides, particularly related to assessment, or if you wanted to share your own church's statistics, if you wanted, there's all kinds of things. And we use the Church Hub address file even for our email broadcasts. So it's an important database element. And again, I'm preaching to the choir here. And this is a slide that tells you from Susan Jackson, who tells you where to look and get your reports, where to pick up your invoice. And again, anyone on this call who doesn't know what their status is in terms of the assessment owed for the year, again, should be, this is where it is. Have a look and make sure that you can bring yourself current. So with that, I've got a list of the various sort of help desk type email contacts for the most common questions. I want to stress that I put the self-insurance program, I'm directing you to the website because there's a bunch of brand new information there this month. So it's worth having a look. And then Angelica's contact teams are here as well. And they can help solve any particular problem. And for example, the bringing all the carry forward data forward, so all the payroll data for a full year is on a T4. I know for a fact that Angelica's team just makes that happen for you. They need to get some information, but they're extremely helpful. And then haven't given Clyde any airtime tonight. Maybe that's just because I'm trying to get through this, but excuse me. Clyde, is there anything coming up from your travels, your seminars, anything that you'd want to flag or add tonight before we wrap things up?
No, I think you've covered what I've picked up over the time. The one comment I do want to make, though, is from this slide, ADP client service. A lot of people have complained in past, and I was one recently trying to get a new person authorized on the file for one of the churches. And I sent an email to uccpastoralcharge.support@ADP, and it was completed in 12 hours. So these addresses are very important to use. Keep them in mind.
Thanks, Clyde. And again, treasurers don't get thanked enough. So thank you for what you do. And we're continuing to work on ways to make things easier. Steve is leading one of our strategic plan initiatives to try to develop an overall sort of turnkey treasurer training type and reference guide and training program, which would reside on ChurchX. And frankly, we have a lot of the material. We just have to piece it together in a more coherent way and potentially update the financial handbook, which is the online version. It dates back to 2017, but is still worth a read for most general information. So thank you again for your time and everything you do for our church. And Steve, are there any other questions before we wrap up tonight?
Yeah, just a couple of them. One that I missed earlier, and I apologize, Don, for not mentioning this. Question about December. I think this is probably an Angelica question. Don says, last December, I approved our minister's pay well ahead of the due date, and she didn't get paid. this happened to other ministers, I gather, as well. I forget the reason. Is there something we need to be aware of in December? I'm sure this caused headaches for your department, so I'm sure you remember what's going on, Angelica. Maybe you can help us on that one, please.
I'm trying to remember, it was the PA. And so again, you know, the payroll team, my payroll team will be able to assist you with that.
Was there a pension adjustment or something?
Yeah,
Somebody
yes,
responded
pension
to this one
adjustment.
saying there was a December pension adjustment, and so it was
Yes, and
not to
again, we
trigger it too
work with,
soon.
right, we work with ADP's schedule. And tomorrow we have the meeting. It has been a bit crazy and
Okay.
everything at the last minute. And so there is a schedule for the PAs. And so we'll, again, we can probably post it on our website to ensure that every pastoral charge receives that type of information and deadlines.
That would be helpful. And, you know, we've got another webinar coming up at the end of November. So if you could just kind of stick that on your agenda for your meeting tomorrow, then
We'll do that.
let us know when we gather next month.
Will do.
Liz is wondering, is Susan Jackson still off? Because she wants to go back and correct some mistakes in her assessment reporting. Statistics reporting.
Send them in. Susan has actually will be off for some time. She's fine, but she you know, she scheduled some medical procedure that takes a little time. So I'm blanking on who the backup person is at the moment. You could, you know, if you sent it to Susan Jackson, it would tell you in her out of office notice. And failing that, feel free to send it to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody's actually reading her email, but
well, I don't want to predict that, but
yeah, but certainly the out of office notice would do it, and one of us could forward it along too. Okay, that's all I've got here, Eric. So I want to say thank you. Again, my apologies for the whatever problem we may have had with the email reminders. I will need to follow up with ChurchX. As some of you know, ChurchX is a third-party agency. It's a group that we hire to do this kind of stuff for us, and I will have to go and chase them and find out what went wrong at their end. But I'm so glad you were able to to get here in the midst of all the other things you do.
yeah,
Delighted
we're
to
a
be
fine
able to
pair.
be with us.
Let me say a quick word about ChurchX, and we aren't doing this yet, but we just tested it out with the excuse me, the general counsel executive this past weekend, or yeah, 2 weeks, whenever it was. It was a general counsel actually, so 300 people. Bear with me, I'm not 100% today. We tested it out, and the idea of having discussion forums or threads, it seemed to work really well for our governors. And you know, Steve, we can look to see if that's possible for treasurers, but that might be a way to have you know, more ongoing communication between webinars, or talk to each other about shared problems and stuff. So I'm not quite sure how that works, but let's look into it.
Well, I actually have already created a discussion forum at the ChurchX page for this program.
There you go.
A couple of people have used it. Right now, the thing is set to only subscribe if you click the button to subscribe. So a few people have used it, but not everybody gets the posts.
Yeah.
If you want to enable it, we can set it to auto subscribe, so a note goes out to everybody on our list every time a question comes in. But it's certainly a useful way to keep the conversation going between live meetings, and that's part of why we started using ChurchX, was to give us the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and just to say that you know, that means I got a bunch of emails about some things that I didn't care about from general counsel, but you know, you can be pretty fast with the delete button. You just give it a quick browse. No, don't care about that. Oh, I better answer this one. That kind of thing.
I need to tell you, I'm a member of all kinds of forums like that, Eric. My email box fills up really fast. But, you know, having that kind of conversation really helps. I want to say thank you to Eric, who is unwell today, and to the rest of you who put up with me coughing as well. It's that season of the year. We know that. And yet here we are working through it, because the work that you do is important. And being a treasurer in the middle of the church is not always an easy job, and certainly not one that is recognized, but it's what allows the church to do the rest of the mission that God gives us. So thank you. And thank you, Eric, for coming through and pulling slides together at the last minute, even when you're under the weather. I know how uncomfortable this bug is.
No problem.
And the rest of you, I hope you had virus protection on your screens tonight, since you got it from both of us. And we'll look forward to seeing you in another few weeks, the end of November.
Okay, thanks, everybody.